Massive wealth exodus, China to witness record-breaking outflow of 13,500 millionaires this year. American media, China's economy is worse than anyone could have imagined. Government gone mad? Fuzhou elderly farmer fined 100,000 yuan for mere 14 yuan vegetable earnings. China CDC releases unexpected epidemic data, analysis unveils Beijing's ongoing concealment of the situation. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Massive wealth exodus, China to witness record-breaking outflow of 13,500 millionaires this year. The issue of ongoing capital outflows from China has once again gained attention with the recent publication of a report by Henley & Partners, a UK-based consultancy specializing in global residency and citizenship. The report reveals that Chinese high-net-worth individuals, HNWI, have set a new record by surpassing 13,500 millionaires in their exodus from China, making it the highest number globally. Henley & Partners defines HNWI as wealthy individuals with investable assets exceeding $1 million. Since the implementation of the zero-COVID policy by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, economic development has slowed down, and the government has tightened political control. Chinese high-net-worth individuals have started to sense a growing unease. Denise Ng, a director at Henley & Partners, stated that some individuals hope to improve their wealth mobility by gaining more visa-free access to key regions, seeking better healthcare opportunities, or enjoying greater political stability. According to a report from Nikkei Asia on the 13th, despite China having an estimated 823,800 millionaires, the trend of capital outflows will result in China losing millions of dollars in wealth, further slowing down its economic growth. Hu Liren, a Shanghai entrepreneur in the United States, states, "I've encountered many classmates in the US who were descendants of capitalists. They used to live in the concessions, in Western-style houses. They started leaving more than 30 years ago. Some of them, around 40 years ago, right at the beginning of the reform and opening up, they fled. So this trend won't change. As long as the Communist Party remains in power, it will definitely not change." Meng Jun, a Chinese millionaire who fled to the United States, believes that the economic problems in China cannot be solved by Li Keqiang, let alone the current premier, Li Qiang. Meng Jun says that since taking office, Li Qiang has not proposed any substantial policies other than focusing on things like barbecue and street vendors. Meng Jun said, "The common people have already seen that economic recovery is hopeless. They see the current economic downturn and the series of policies being implemented, which are increasingly resembling the Cultural Revolution. Especially for these entrepreneurs and millionaires, they have experienced the Cultural Revolution to some extent, and they are well aware of what will happen next. So at this time, they will spare no cost to transfer their assets and immigrate overseas." According to Hu Liren, a Shanghai entrepreneur residing in the United States, as the country's situation worsens, the number of people fleeing increases, and they employ various methods to do so. He emphasizes that the reason for this mass exodus is the awakening of the populace. Hu Liren notes a shift in the topics discussed in domestic social circles, where economic and political matters no longer hold prominence. Instead, they talk about which country they are going to run to, where their children are going, where they are sending their children, how to transfer funds and assets, how to liquidate their businesses and cash out. These are the topics people discuss when they have meals together. The report also points out that the situation in Hong Kong is similar, with an estimated 1,000 millionaires expected to emigrate this year, significantly impacting the government's ability to attract funds. American media, China's economy is worse than anyone could have imagined. On June 14, Business Insider, a U.S. business media outlet, published an article stating that China's economic condition is worse than anyone could have imagined. The article highlights that when Beijing lifted the lockdown, economists and investors rejoiced, with everyone expecting to benefit from the development of the world's second-largest economy. However, today, Wall Street's dreams of China are turning into a nightmare. Unexpectedly, China's economic recovery has been sluggish. Industrial production has been disappointing, and trade, both imports and exports, has significantly slowed down. Debt is rampant everywhere, especially in the real estate development sector, which accounts for 30% of the economy. The expanding infringement on human rights by the Chinese Communist Party, coupled with increasing control over businesses, has left private enterprises in a state of panic, while trade partners feel uneasy. The article suggests that the mechanism driving the China miracle has collapsed, and the bubble in the Chinese real estate market has finally burst. The wealth of Chinese households, banks, and local governments in China will face being drained away. In April, China's economic data was generally weak. A survey by the Chinese National Bureau of Statistics revealed an unexpected contraction in economic activity. Industrial production increased by only 5.9% compared to the previous month, far below the expected 10.6%. The real estate market, which is an important component of government revenue, also remained stagnant, with a 22% decline in land sales in the first quarter of 2023. Banks like JP Chase have started writing letters to clients, and other major investors are actively abandoning the Chinese market. The analysis of the article points out that the core of China's structural problems lies in its debt. Over the years, China's economic growth has primarily relied on infrastructure and real estate development, resulting in many poor investments. For years, Chinese local governments have mainly raised funds by selling land to real estate companies. As local financing collapses and credit flow gradually tightens, some real estate companies have started selling apartments before they are even completed, relying on the support of Chinese consumers to raise funds. However, with the market collapse, some developers have failed to fulfill their commitments, leaving families in distress. Real estate was supposed to be a safe investment for Chinese savers, as over 70% of China's wealth is tied to real estate. The impact is not only on the elderly, but the bursting of the real estate bubble has also damaged the prospects of the younger generation. Some local governments, facing fiscal constraints, have increased university tuition fees by 54%, with youth unemployment rates exceeding 20%. The article states that China is facing a long and painful road, and in this environment, trade is crucial for China. It is now an ideal time to increase exports and attract capital from the external world. However, the decision-makers in the Chinese Communist Party seem uninterested in market-oriented solutions to alleviate the crisis and reverse the downward trend. On the contrary, Chinese leader Xi Jinping has been preparing the Chinese people to endure hardships and embrace an era of low growth. The article describes Xi Jinping as a terminator rather than an initiator. The United States, once China's largest trading partner, has now de-risked its relationship with China due to geopolitical tensions. In conclusion, the article states, instead of the exuberant recovery that Wall Street was expecting, we are witnessing the last gasps of the Chinese economic miracle, and almost no one was ready. Government gone mad? Fuzhou elderly farmer fined 100,000 yuan for mere 14 yuan vegetable earnings. The CCP's finances are in crisis, leading to intensified efforts across the country to generate revenue through fines. On June 13 RD, news broke that an elderly farmer in Fuzhou City, Fujian Province, faced exorbitant fines from the local Municipal Supervision Bureau for selling celery, sparking public criticism. According to local official media reports, on September 11, 2019, an elderly Chen from Minho County in Fuzhou City passed by Mrs. Wang's vegetable plot and purchased 70 kilograms of celery for 122.5 yuan. He then brought it to a vegetable wholesaler and sold it for 1.95 yuan per kilogram, earning a profit of 14 yuan. That day, a supermarket purchased a batch of fruits and vegetables from the same wholesaler, including 7.5 kilograms of celery sold by Mr. Chen. The next day, the local Market Supervision Bureau conducted an inspection of the celery purchased by the supermarket, and the test results showed excessive pesticide residues, rendering it non-compliant. It wasn't until February 8, 2021, nearly a year and a half later, that the Market Supervision Department initiated an investigation into Mr. Chen. Over a year later, on April 22, 2022, the Market Supervision Department issued an administrative penalty decision, ordering Mr. Chen to make corrections, issuing a warning, confiscating the illegal profit of 14 yuan, and imposing a fine of 50,000 yuan, approximately $6,971. Since Mr. Chen did not proactively pay the fine, the Market Supervision Department sent him a reminder on December 19, 2022, urging him to promptly pay the 50,000 yuan fine and imposing an additional fine of 50,000 yuan. As a result, Mr. Chen, who earned a profit of 14 yuan from selling celery, now faces the impossible situation of being fined 100,000 yuan, making it completely unaffordable for him to pay the fine. Neighbors have also criticized the excessive punishment. However, the Market Supervision Bureau did not give up. On February 14, 2023, they applied to the court for compulsory enforcement of the administrative penalty and additional fines. The court subsequently ruled that the Market Supervision Bureau had imposed an excessive punishment and that the investigation and punishment had exceeded the statutory time limit, therefore ruling against the enforcement. The Market Supervision Bureau filed an application for reconsideration, which was also rejected by the appellate court. This absurd case was recently used by official Chinese media to create hype, attempting to portray the court as an impartial entity. However, many netizens were not convinced. The official propaganda backfired, triggering public anger towards the CCP's crazy fine generation approach. Netizens left comments criticizing the situation, saying, "Why not just rob them directly? Tax collection can't fill the giant hole, so they can only resort to open looting. They've gone crazy due to poverty, resorting to various fines." Nowadays, these government agencies have no fear even when faced with raging floods. After this wave of official propaganda backfired, some official accounts on Weibo closed the comment function for related posts, and the relevant keywords were restricted on the platform. China CDC releases unexpected epidemic data, analysis unveils Beijing's ongoing concealment of the situation. As previously reported, after 42 days of silence, the Chinese Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, suddenly announced on June 11 that there were 164 deaths and 2,777 new severe cases of COVID-19 in China in May. CDC admitted that the positive rate for COVID-19 among influenza-like cases surged to an astonishing 42.5% in May, indicating that the current infection rate is quite high and approaching the peak of late December 2022, after the CCP lifted its zero-COVID policy. According to the curve of the positive rate for COVID-19 published by the CDC, the positive rate from December 12 to 18, 2022, was 33.2%. From December 19 to 25, it reached 59.5%, with the highest being 60%. However, the latest briefing from the CDC claimed that the upward trend slowed down in late May and is currently showing a downward trend. Commentator Yuan recently pointed out in the Epoch Times that the conclusion hastily drawn by the CCP-CDC contradicts the data of a 42.5% positive rate for the CCP virus at the end of May. This is likely another politically motivated conclusion directed by the CCP leadership. Looking at the curve, the positive rate for the CCP virus in March and April was very low, while the positive rate for influenza was high, raising suspicions that the CCP has been categorizing CCP virus cases as influenza cases to create the so-called victory in epidemic prevention. According to the CCP-CDC, COVID-19 infections in China are classified as Class B infectious diseases under Class II management. According to the law, the requirement for disclosing information on epidemic situations is to release it once a month. However, starting from early January until April 29 this year, the Chinese CDC provided weekly updates on the epidemic. But in May, they remained silent for a full 42 days before releasing another report on June 11. The outside world believes that all data from the CCP is manipulated for political purposes. In addition, the CDC previously announced 6 deaths from COVID-19 infections in hospitals on February 16. On that same day, the members of the CCP's Political Bureau Standing Committee held a meeting and officially declared a decisive victory in epidemic prevention and control. Subsequently, on February 23, the CDC announced 0 deaths from the epidemic. In response to this, Zhong Yuan analyzed that the current number of COVID-19 patients in hospitals is probably tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even more. The CDC dares not disclose this information, clearly intending to cover up the truth about the rapid rise of the epidemic. However, on May 28, the CCP's official media, Xinhua News Agency, leaked some information. Xinhua News Agency reported on that day, there has been an increase in re-positive patients. How should we view the current situation? How should we respond scientifically? On May 10 to 12, Xi Jinping inspected Xiongmen New Area and other places in Hebei. Li Chang and Ding Xuedong were summoned twice, and Kai Chi accompanied throughout, all wearing masks. On May 18 to 19, Xi Jinping hosted the heads of the 5 Central Asian countries in Xi'an. Only Xi Jinping and the heads of the various countries were exempted from wearing masks, while the surrounding staff were required to wear masks, including during the welcome banquet. On May 24, Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin visited China. When meeting with Xi Jinping and Li Chang, those around them were also required to wear masks. On May 29, the CCP Political Bureau held a collective study session, and everyone except Xi Jinping wore masks. 3 members of the Political Bureau were absent, including Zhang Youxia, Zhang Guoqing, and Chen Wenqing. It is difficult to confirm whether they were infected. However, during the lecture by Qiu Yong, the party secretary of Tsinghua University and an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, he unexpectedly wore a mask while speaking. From June 6 to 8, Xi Jinping conducted an inspection in Inner Mongolia, still implementing strict epidemic prevention measures. On June 7, during a military briefing, only Xi Jinping did not wear a mask, and others maintained a significant distance from him. Zhang Youxia was absent once again. On June 12, Xi Jinping held a welcome ceremony for the visiting president of Honduras in front of the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. The staff members from both sides continued to wear masks outdoors. Regarding the behavior of the top CCP leaders mentioned above, commentator Zhong Yuan believes that in the face of the rapidly escalating CCP virus epidemic, the CCP is desperately trying to cover it up. Seeing that their cover-up is no longer effective, they have no choice but to start announcing the number of infected and deceased individuals. However, the Chinese Communist Party's CDC is still fabricating contradictory false data. Don't forget to comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.